everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Luisa. How's everybody doing? I've been so busy putting together some beautiful pieces using the Bargain Bead box for October, and oh my gosh, don't you just love the beads? I love them. I don't know if I would call them fall colors though. You know, some of the greens are a little bit bright and they kind of remind me of spring, but they're beautiful nonetheless. And here, let me show you what my beading board looks like. I'll just give you a little glimpse. I'm a little bit embarrassed and a little bit ashamed, and I sometimes ask myself how I even function with such a mess. But yeah, there's a little glimpse of my Bargain Bead box for October, guys. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but the nice thing is that I can pick up my beading tray just like this and move it off to the side and get a new one and start a new project. So today we're going to talk about memory wire bracelets. I'm going to talk about them a little bit and then we're going to go ahead and make one. So if you've watched any of my previous videos, you will be familiar with something called the Coil Buddy. It's a tool that I came up with that helps you make memory wire bracelets very easily without having to load and unload your beads, which is what usually happens when you're trying to line up patterns on multiple coils. And I came up with the Coil Buddy because I personally went out onto the internet one day looking for some kind of a memory wire bracelet guide. Something that would help me line up patterns without having to tear my hair out trying to line them up myself by unloading and loading. If you've made memory wire bracelets, you know what I'm talking about. It can be absolutely maddening. So I came up with this idea. It's called the memory wire bracelet guide, and it comes with some rods, and the rods help you to thread beads that are not round, beads that are multiple shapes and sizes, bead caps as well, which is something that you can't do on a beading board very successfully, okay? If you're talking precision, it's very difficult to use a beading board to hold all of those items, okay? So the magic rods help you hold all of those different items in place, and it makes it very easy to measure out precise measurements or precise lengths. So I came up with Coil Buddy with magic rods, and a lot of you purchased the Coil Buddy. Thank you very much for those of you who purchased it. But there are some things that I needed to research, and I've been spending a lot of time researching what type of memory wire to use. So let me just get to the point, okay? The Coil Buddy is a wonderful tool and it'll help you make gorgeous bracelets. However, you have to use thick gauge memory wire, and that's the key. And when I say it has to be thick memory wire, I'm talking about the actual gauge has to be at least 20 gauge, okay? Now 20 gauge is about 0.8 millimeters in thickness. So if you go searching for memory wire coils, you're gonna see all kinds of sizes ranging from 0.5 millimeters in thickness all the way to 1 millimeter in thickness. The most common gauge that's out there is actually 0.6 millimeters, which is about 22 gauge, and that is just not thick enough. So let me put up this chart, and I want you to take a look at it and maybe take a snapshot of the screen because it's important that you understand the different gauges that are out there. I recommend that you find memory wire that is either 20 gauge or 18 gauge, okay, and that's the equivalent of 0.8 millimeters for 20 gauge or 1 millimeter for 18 gauge. Okay, I know it's a little bit confusing, but again, you know, the memory wire that you use makes a huge difference. It has to be very thick. It's not rocket science, okay? I should have just realized this. I went crazy actually researching the internet and figuring out what kind of wire to use. I even consulted with an engineer to figure out why there was a shift in the bead patterns, and it's all to do with the thickness of your wire. So you have to use memory wire that's thick. 0.6 millimeter thickness is what's commonly sold, okay? If you do a search on Amazon or the internet, that's what you're going to find. That's not going to be strong enough. It just isn't going to be strong enough. It's okay if you're just randomly putting beads on a coil, but if you're trying to create patterns, precise patterns, you need the thicker memory wire. It's very difficult to get the right information, okay? A lot of sellers do not list their products correctly, okay? So a lot of times you will see a seller listing memory wire as 0.6 centimeters thickness, and that's impossible. That would be too thick, okay? So a lot of them get it wrong, okay? The only place where I have seen where they don't get it wrong is on Panda Hall. So you can go on Panda Hall and find different gauges. The downside with Panda Hall is that it takes forever for them to ship it, okay? It takes at least 3 to 4 weeks. There's another brand out there called Bead, which I really like, and they sell heavy duty memory wire that's about 0.91 millimeters in thickness, which is great. That's almost 1 millimeter. But even Bead is difficult to find on the internet, okay? But if you can find it, that's great. They have the thicker wire. The only downside is that it's more expensive. It's made in the USA, and if you're all for supporting the US economy, I say go for it, okay? I think it's a great brand. So if you can find it, that would be the one to use. It's the heavy duty memory wire. I think they call it remembrance wire. You don't get a lot of coils for your money, but again, it's good quality wire. So anyway, guys, I've been very busy trying to solve this problem, and if you purchased Coil Buddy, please give it another try using the heavier gauge wire. And I have a whole bag of memory wire here. It's 0.7 millimeters that I'm not going to use, okay, unless I'm doing random patterns. This is great for random patterns, okay, or I may use it for hoop earrings or something else. I don't know, but I'm going to put this off to the side, and I'm going to be using 0.8 millimeters from now on. I am waiting for a shipment of 1 millimeter memory wire, so hopefully I'll get that soon, and once I do, I will test it and let you know the results. And if you haven't purchased the Coil Buddy and you think you might be interested, I will leave a link down below so you can go check it out in my Etsy store. I'll also leave a link to the first video where I actually launched the product, or you can just watch this video because we're going to go through all the steps using the Coil Buddy today. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and set up my workspace, and I'll turn the camera around and we'll get started. Alright, so I have a nice clean beading board ready to go, and let me go ahead and get Coil Buddy so you can see what it looks like. This is what it looks like. This is actually version 1. It's the one that has the 60 millimeter guidelines. The newer version has 2 other guidelines, one for 55 and one for 65, but this is the first version that I came up with. And these are the rods that come with it. These are 9-inch rods, and you get a set of 5. They come with little stoppers. I've already attached the stoppers to save time, but I do have longer ones on my Etsy store. I have 12-inch rods for those of you who are interested in using them for other projects like necklaces and things. But the Coil Buddy comes with 9-inch rods. Let me put this off to the side now. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to select the beads. And I went through my beads earlier, and I found these gorgeous tiger eye beads that I haven't used for anything at all, okay? I did pull some out to look at them. They're really large. I believe these are 10 millimeter in size. I'm going to use one of them as the starter bead, the focal bead, okay? So this is my inspiration bead. I'm going to put that in the center of my focal. Okay, so let me see what else I can do around this bead. I want to create some kind of a pattern. And let me just show you really quick. I'll do a quick diagram of what I have in mind. Okay, let me just show you really quick what I have in mind. So I'm going to do a 5-coil bracelet. So here are my coils, okay? And then I'm going to create a center point. So this will be the tiger eye that I showed you a few moments ago. And then I'm going to create a little pattern around it. So I'm not sure if it'll be 2 beads or 3 beads, but basically there'll be a different kind of bead here and a different one here. Let me just color this one in so you can see that it's different. And then above and below it, I will do some of the beads as well, different kinds, okay? And then whatever else happens, and that's just going to be based on whatever inspires me when I go look at my beads, okay? So this is the kind of thing that the Coil Buddy lets you do, okay? And it's really hard to do this kind of thing visually, just, you know, loading beads on coils and unloading. I've done that before. But the Coil Buddy allows you to do a pattern like this ahead of time with before you even load it on the coil. So that's what makes it so easy and so cool. And I should have called it the Cool Buddy, but I decided it was better to call it Coil Buddy. That's a tongue twister. But anyway, that's what I have in mind. So let me go ahead and get my beading board. Okay, so we know that we're going to do this one in the middle. Okay, that's the tiger eye. It's real pretty. It's faceted, as you can see. I think I might have gotten this one on Beadbox Bargains. I'm not sure. Okay, so I went looking earlier and I found these other ones that I've used before in other projects. I have a few left. These are lava rock beads, I believe they are. And they're in a kind of a bronzy color. So let me just pull some out. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to pull out a few and then we'll decide how many we're going to use. Okay. So this is the color scheme that I have so far, and when I do memory wire bracelets, I like to create something that has contrast and you know, with not too many colors. But sometimes I use a neutral, you know, I'll have a main color like a bronze or an antique gold, and then I'll have either a clear glass or something like that. But I'm not sure yet where I'm going to go because I haven't decided. These are some of the beads that are left over from the bargain bead box for October. They're kind of bluish. I'm not sure if I want to use those. Let's see what else. And I've got these other green ones, which I think they're too bright. I don't think that goes really well with that. So let me just keep looking for a second here. I've got these other ones. These are sea opal, and they would be okay, but I see a little bit of bluish in these beads, so I'm not sure if that would work. It might work, but I'm leaning more towards some kind of a clear. So let me go grab my box of rondelles and I'll be right back. Okay, let's have a look here. That's a really nice color. I love that. That would work really well with those other beads. But I was really looking for something clear, something that's more transparent. So let's see what we got here. This one looks like it might be okay. Yeah, let's give this a shot. I don't know if there's enough beads there though, but I'll put this one aside and then I can come back in here and look for something else if I need more. Okay, I'm showing you this process, guys, because I want to show you just how easy it is to just grab some beads and put something together really quick. So this looks pretty good together, I think. This has like a yellowish tone, very slight yellow tint to it. I think it's a champagne kind of a color. I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and pull out the Coil Buddy again, and we'll arrange some beads on the Coil Buddy to get an idea of where we're going. All right, so here it is. And my plan is to put this one in the middle, okay? And then let's just say we put some of these on the sides, just like that. And perhaps I can do maybe 2 here and 2 above that, something like that. Okay, and then these are pretty large, so I think I'm going to put these on the center coil. So we can arrange them like this, and I'm just doing this as a preliminary. You know, I prefer to use the rods to arrange the beads, you know, to see exactly how many I'm going to need, but I just want to get some idea of where I'm going. Okay, so let's see, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3. Okay, let's just put one more here so it balances out. 6 here and 6 there, and I'm going to need something to fill in the gaps here. So let's go ahead and put this off to the side for a moment, and I want to use beads that help to anchor the pattern in place, and these are chips, and these look like they might be tiger eye chips. That's what they look like to me. So I'm going to dump these out because I think that'll pick up the beautiful colors from that tiger eye focal bead. It's the same type of stone, so it'll look really nice, I think. And get a magic rod, okay? And I'll put the center bead on, all right? So go ahead and put some of these lava rock beads. One on this side. Always use your stoppers, okay? And then flip it. And we'll put another one on this side, like this, okay? Put the stopper on. Okay, and now let's go ahead and work on the upper row or the upper coil. And I think I said I wanted to do 2 of these, so let's just put these 2 on just like that and put the stopper on the end so I don't lose the beads. I've done that many times. It's always a good idea to put your stoppers on no matter what you're doing. So it's going to look like this, and that sits really well together. I like the way that looks and the way it sits together. Okay, that's good. Alright, so here are my rondelles, and I wanted to put them on the center coil. So I need to decide what I'm going to do, because remember that I had some space left over. So I don't know if I should put these on first and then these, or the other way around. I think I'm going to put these on first and then these on the ends. So let's just go ahead and put on a few. I don't know how many. And that's the nice thing about using the rods. You really don't have to worry about counting, because you know, once you do one side, you can just eyeball the other side, and that looks about 1 inch approximately. I mean, you can measure it if you want to be precise. So it's going to look like this, okay? And so now let's go ahead and put some more on this end, the same amount, or the same length, I should say, because the chips are all different widths, okay? So you may need a different amount on the other end, I'm not sure. Okay, let's see what this looks like. That looks about the same width, I would say. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and see how this looks so far. That's looking pretty good so far. I'm liking that quite a bit. All right, so to me, these colors are very rich. And so now I want to switch over to the transparent, okay? So this is that champagne color. I'm going to put, I don't know if it'll be 6. We're going to figure that out in a second. It'll be 6 or maybe 7 or 8 on either end of this rod. So that's 5. Let's do 6 and then we'll figure it out, okay? Flip it over and put 6 on this end. The nice thing about these rods is that you can thread beads on very, very quickly. So the design process ends up being very efficient and very quick. Okay, that's 6. I think I'm going to need more, because I know I've used the Coil Buddy so many times that I know that I need to fill in the ends a little bit more. So let me just put 2 more here and 2 more on the other end, and I think that should be good. But we're going to hold it up to the Coil Buddy and see if the length is the correct length. So that's a total of 8. Okay, so we'll put 2 more on this side. Let's see. That's 8. And now, before I go any further, let me go ahead and get Coil Buddy and we'll see what it looks like so far. Okay, so make sure the beads, when you're using it, make sure they're snug up against each other, just like this. And then you get to see what you need on each end. And it looks like I need more than one. So I may have to use some filler beads, which is okay. Either I can use filler beads or I can put more chips in there. When I say filler beads, I'm referring to seed beads, basically, okay? Seed beads, the right width so that I can, you know, fill in whatever spaces I need to fill in. So I'm not sure if I'll do that or if I'll do some more chips. I think maybe I'll do some more chips so I don't have to put any seed beads on the end. So let me go ahead, and the nice thing about the Coil Buddy is that if you do have to redo your design, it's no problem, because you simply slide them off and slide them back on very easily, okay? Unlike a coil where you have to bring that bead all through the coils. You're just working with one row at a time, so that makes it super, super easy. Okay, and I think we decided to add another one of these. And let's flip it over now and do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to add a thin, very thin chip. And then my rondelles. Okay, and the stopper, so I don't lose my beads. Is that right? Let's see. 6, 8, 6. Oops, I forgot one. There we go. Okay, so we have 9 rondelles on each side. When you're working with the rods, use pliers so you don't poke yourself. And you do want to make sure your beads are snug, okay? All right, so now let's take another look at the Coil Buddy and see where we're at. Okay, so I've got the bead in the center there, and I have no space on this side. That's good. And then no space on this side, so that's pretty good. So that's my center row. So the center row is done. Okay, now before I go any further, guys, if you go through all the trouble of arranging your pattern and then suddenly you find out that the bead won't fit through, or the memory wire won't fit through the bead, you're going to be very upset. So I usually have a scrap of memory wire available, just a scrap of whatever gauge I'm using, and I test it. I test the beads because I just want to make sure, and these look like these are going to be okay. Generally speaking, the larger the bead is, the bigger the hole. So you shouldn't really worry unless they're very tiny beads. And all of these chips look like they're fine, okay? They look pretty uniform. The holes do. So I'm not too worried about the chips. And these lava rock beads are big beads, so usually the holes are pretty big. But I would recommend that you test your beads before you arrange them, you know, or before you thread them onto the coil, because the rods are very thin, okay? So it may fit on the rod, but it won't fit on your memory wire. So you need to be aware of that. All right, so let's move on to the rows above and below. Okay, so we decided we were going to do these two and these two. All right, so I think what I'm going to do, just to make this pattern stand out a little bit, is I'm going to put some clear beads, I think, above and below this. This is my box of 6mm, and that's a nice big strand of clears. These are pretty, but I don't have enough of these, so this might work. Let's see, strand that yeah, this is a nice big strand. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull these out. All right, so I'm going to thread some of these beads on, and here's what I recommend. If you have beads on a strand, try to keep them on the strand. Don't remove them, because it'll make it so much easier for you to thread the beads onto the rods, okay? And I'll show you in just a second. So if you have them on the strand like this, you can grab several at the same time and then thread them right onto the rod. So you grab them like this, try to keep them in alignment, and then thread them onto the rod, just like that, okay? It just makes it so much easier and quicker when you do it like that, instead of, you know, trying to do one at a time. So don't be tempted to take the beads off the strand. Keep them on the strand. That way you'll save yourself some time, okay? All right, so let's see what we got so far. I'm going to switch to the other side before I go any further to make sure that I don't put too many on, and then we'll hold it up to the Coil Buddy. Okay, let's do a few more and then we'll see where we're at. put your stopper back on. Okay, and let's see how this looks. All right, so it looks like this side might be okay. Let me show you real quick. Okay, can you see that? It looks like it might be a little bit beyond the guideline, but I think we'll be all right. This side, it looks like I need 2 more beads, maybe 3. I don't know. Let's do 2, and then we'll see. So let's push the beads together. Make sure they're snug up against each other. Get the Coil Buddy. Take another look. So as you can see, the bead is going beyond the guideline. I don't like that. On this side as well, as you can see. Okay, there's the center and there's the side. Remove this bead here and put 2 seed beads on the end. I think that'll take care of that space. Okay, I've got this beautiful bronze color. It's metallic bronze, 8/0 size, and I think if I put 2 on each end, that should be enough to take care of that space. Let's go look at the guide before we do the other side. All right, so there's the center. Can you guys see that? And there's the end, and the seed bead is right on the guideline, so that's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and do the same thing to this side. We'll remove one of these and thread on 2 8/0 seed beads. Okay, so this is what we have so far. It's looking pretty good. And if you put it on the guide, this is what it looks like. Okay, just like that. All right, so now to save time, I'm going to go ahead and build one exactly like this one for the upper row, the one above the tiger eye. So I'll do that off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I built the upper row. As you can see, I changed my mind though. I took those 8/0 seed beads off and I placed some 6/0 seed beads in their place because I felt that it just looked better. So I think what I'm going to do now, just to keep it simple, I'm going to do the row above this one and the row below this one. This is really cool. I got this huge bag and I think I got it on Amazon, guys. Look how big it is. It's 1 pound. I don't know exactly where I got it. I'll research it. I think it was Amazon. Maybe it was eBay. I don't know. But I just thought it was a great deal. And there are so many 6/0 seed beads here. It's going to last me a lifetime. So I'm going to use these for the upper and lower coil, or the rows. Okay, so let me just dump some out. And we're going to start threading. So I have to fill my rod and then hold it up to the Coil Buddy to see if it's the right length. So that's another nice thing about this. You don't have to count and you don't have to worry about the beads being all uniform, because it really doesn't matter as long as it measures what I want it to measure, you know, the length of the rod. That's all I'm concerned about. I don't care how many beads there are. So it's definitely a time saver, and because the rod is rigid, it just makes it so much easier to thread the beads on. Let's see, let's put a few more on and we'll go and measure it. Let's see what it looks like. Looks like I need to add some more. Let me go ahead and add a few more. And I always like to add an accent bead of some sort. So I think what I'm going to do on the very end, I'm going to add a 6mm round. Okay, so there you have it, guys. There's the rod, there's this end, and there's this end, and that's exactly what I need. So let me put the stopper on. So that's going to go here, and now I'm going to build this one for the upper row. Now these seed beads look like, to me they look like the color might come off. They're not very good quality. That's why they were so cheap, and that's why I got so many of them. So I think what I might do after I get done with this bracelet is I might hit it with a little, I think it's called permalac. It's a little coating that you can add to your beads to protect the color. All right, we're almost there. Let's eyeball it now. Since we already have one threaded, we can just hold this one up to it and see how many more beads I need to add. That looks about right. And now let me go ahead and grab one of those 6mm rounds. And then the seed bead at the end, and that looks about right. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put the stopper on before I go any further. Make sure these are nice and snug. Check them to make sure they're both identical. Okay. That looks good, and that looks good. Get my buddy coil and check it to see if it fits within the guidelines. You want to make sure that the beads fit. So now our patterns are done and they're ready for threading. This is what it looks like. Okay. I like the way that looks. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the memory wire. I'm going to clean this up first. This is a very important tip. So before you thread your memory wire, clean your board completely. Make sure there are no loose beads anywhere, okay? And I'll explain why in just a few seconds. Okay, I've cleaned my board. There are no other beads anywhere, no loose beads. And the reason is that when you go threading your rods, if you accidentally drop one, you'll see it right away and you won't get confused and accidentally pick up more than one or whatever if you have loose beads on your board, okay? So that's the main reason why you want a clean board. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the memory wire. I have 0.8mm here. I got this on Panda Haul. It was pretty reasonable, but like I said earlier, it takes forever for it to ship because it's coming from China. It's not perfect, I will tell you that, because some of the coils are not exactly 60mm, and I'm going to show you an example of what I'm talking about. So here I have some scraps, and these are all 0.8mm, okay? Let me just show you what I'm talking about. All right, so as you can see, the coils are not sitting on top of each other, okay? There's a shift there, okay? That's not good. If you're trying to do precise patterns, it's going to mess up your pattern. This one's even worse. Look at this, okay? So you don't want to use a piece that looks like this, okay? Because then you'll be cursing me. You'll be saying, Luisa, it didn't work out. And this is the reason why. You basically want a piece of coil that has 6 loops that are sitting on top of each other. You don't want them off center like this, okay? Because then your patterns will not line up. So when you go to cut your memory wire, okay, you want to look out for that. You want to make sure your coils are sitting on top of each other. And because this is so cheap, I'm not too concerned about wastage, okay? So the way I do this, guys, I ignore the first one, okay, and I count 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's where I'm going to cut. Okay, now if you're working with bead-along wire, you don't want to do that because bead-along is expensive. Okay, so you want to be a little bit more precise. So this one looks okay. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than what I showed you a few moments ago. As you can see, they haven't shifted very much from their position. So I think this one's going to work out okay. And by the way, when you go to cut your memory wire, use memory wire cutters. Don't use your regular cutters, okay? All right, so once you've got this cut, you can go ahead and loop one end, okay? Now, traditionally, you know, before the Coil Buddy, I used to keep this end open so that I could uncoil or unload beads and reload them. But since the Coil Buddy, I haven't had to do that. I'm pretty confident. I'm going to go ahead and close off this end with a loop, and I do use my Beadalon loopers, okay, memory wire loopers. As you can see, these are by Beadalon. You can get these on Amazon. And once you have your loop, you can go ahead and start loading your beads. So if your coil gets tangled up, sometimes it does, what you can do is just run your finger around it like this to get it untangled, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and start with the first row. So the first row, I'm going to start with this end. This is going to go at the end. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and grab several at the same time, and because the rod holds them in perfect alignment, you can very easily slide them off the rod and onto your coil, just like that. Okay, it's so easy, guys, because that's the beauty of the rods, and you can use the rods for other projects, like I said before. It just saves time. See that? And if you've ever tried to thread seed beads onto a coil, you know what I'm talking about. It's very time consuming, and you know, it's so much easier to pick them up with a rod and put them on the rod first and then just thread them onto the coil like I am doing right now, as you can see. It's very quick and easy. So because my board is clean, if I accidentally drop one, it's very easy for me to see, and I can just pick it up. But if I have other beads on my board, which has happened to me before, and I drop one, then I don't know what I'm doing, and I end up threading more than I should or less than I should. It becomes a real problem and a real mess. See, I dropped one right there. So since my board was clean, I know that it belongs on this first coil or this first row. Okay, and then just slide them down like you normally do. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and load the second row. And I'm going to start out by picking up or threading on this first one here by itself. And then, since these are all uniform, I can do several at the same time. So what I do, guys, I use these fingers to hold the rod like this, and then I slide them off this end. Just a little tip to make it easier for you. And we have one more. Slide them down. Okay, that's what we have so far. Okay, now we're going to load the center row with the big tiger eye bead. Now the only ones that you might have trouble with are the chips. They're a little bit more difficult to thread on because they're not round and they're not uniform. So you may have a little bit of trouble threading them on, but you can still do at least a couple at the same time. And then they do sometimes get stuck when you slide them down the coil. Sometimes they do get stuck, so you have to kind of help them along a little bit. All right, and now my center beads. and the other chips. I love using chips in memory wire bracelets. I like using them for two reasons. One, they're just so attractive, and two, they act like anchor beads, so they hold your pattern in place. And if you haven't seen my first video where I launched the Coil Buddy, please take a look at that video because I talk about bead anchoring or anchor beads. I do recommend that you slide them down before you thread on any other beads because they are a little bit finicky sometimes, but this is what we have so far. Okay, very nice. Okay, and now let's thread the rest of these. Look how beautiful that looks, guys. Oh my gosh, that is so pretty. Okay, and now let's move on to the fourth row. All right, so let me slide these down. Check your pattern. Everything's lining up beautifully. And now the final row. So we know this is going to go on the end, so I'm going to start from this end. Okay, let's slide everything down and check the spacing. Now what I like to do is I like to put a regular ear stopper on here. These little stoppers will not fit. They're too small. They're designed to hold onto the rods and to hold beads onto the rods. So they're too thin. The holes are too thin to fit onto a coil that's at 0.8 millimeters. But here you go, guys. And look at this. I don't even have to retrain my wire. Everything's lining up beautifully. Look at this. Oh my gosh, I'm in love with this combination. I'm absolutely in love with this combination. I like to have contrast because I like to be able to see the pattern. And this is impossible, guys, to do it without a guide, I'm telling you, and without the rods. I mean, you could do it if you load and unload beads multiple times, which I've done so many times in the past. Okay, so now all you have to do once you do this, of course, if you've done memory wire bracelets before, is to finish off with a loop at the other end. Before you do, check your spaces, make sure there are no spaces, especially around your chips, because the chips don't slide as easily, okay? Make sure there are no spaces. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. I'm just adding some little charms using some of the chips. Okay, that's really cute. And now I'm going to go look for a charm for the other end. And I found this really cute heart charm in a bronzy kind of a color. So there you go, guys. Look how gorgeous that looks. Oh my gosh, that is so pretty. Look at the back and look at the front. And I didn't have to train my wire at all. It's so beautiful. I love this. So another place that you might want to look for 8mm is on Etsy. Etsy might have sellers that sell 8mm. Look how gorgeous that looks. That is so pretty. And this is 60mm memory wire. Okay, that's the it's a little confusing because that's the diameter. Okay, but what you want to look for is the gauge, the thickness. Okay, 0.8 or thicker. By using 0.8, then you end up with something that holds its pattern very easily, and you don't have to train your wire at all. Look at that, guys. That is so beautiful. All right, so let me go ahead and put this away, and I'll come back to say goodbye. All right, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Like I said earlier, if you purchased Coil Buddy, please give it another shot using the thicker gauge wire. I promise you will have really good results if you switch to a thicker gauge. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Thank you for subscribing, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Let's drift away from this world of madness. Take a little time to enjoy the silence. Feel the wind as it touches your lips. Feel the sun as you close your eyelids.